Hi everyone, do you recognize this position? The Marshall Gambit. In this video, we will learn how to play the opening, learn key concepts and important themes, and even find out from which famous game did this opening get its name from. I'm FoxTrainer. Sit back, relax, and let's learn. So let's take it from the top. E4, E5, F3, Knight C6, Bishop B5, and A6. So we have a Rai Lopez on the board. White goes back. We all know by now that bishop takes knight doesn't win a pawn. Black capture C6. After knight takes pawn, do you see the tactic that black can play? Of course you did. Queen to D4, and black will definitely get his pawn back with the bishop pair and nothing to complain about. So white drops back. Knight to F6 attacking the e-pawn. The main line white castles usually invites black to grab here, going into an open Rai Lopez. But we will just continue to develop with bishop e7. Rook to e1 protecting the pawn. And finally we need to watch out for white capturing the knight and the pawn dropping. So pawn to b5 pushing the bishop back. And here comes a little twist. Usually black would play pawn to d6. And we've seen a lot of Rai Lopez games where white goes c3, castles, and h3, and black has a wide variety of options here. Instead, we are not going to play d6 quite yet. We are simply going to castle. And here comes the vital moment. What should white do? This is actually something that up to now, modern day players are still pondering what's the best move for white. What do you think? So, let's assume white wants to continue the way he usually does, with pawn to c3. Now, all of a sudden, black has a beautiful extra option. He can transpose into d6 into the main line. Instead, this is where we see the Marshall Gambit. Woohoo! So, what makes this gambit so much fun? Well, first of all, black is gaining some space by pushing the pawn all the way to d5, immediately threatening the white's stronghold in the center. And the question is, what should white do? And of course, white doesn't want to stand back, so white can capture. And just notice how this opens up white's rook, the e5 pawn. But, of course, black is already quite happy to continue and offer up this pawn. The following sequence. Well, just before I show you the sequence, there were actually 2 games played in this position before the first actual gambit, Marshall Gambit, that is in my database, where black actually played pawn to e4. Interesting move. After pawn takes knight and pawn takes knight, interesting game continues. But for our theme, we are not going to play e4. After the capture, we actually play knight takes pawn. And this is the famous Marshall Gambit. This is where we actually get the name from. There was a famous US chess player called Frank Marshall. Frank actually uncorked this novelty against the famous world champion Jose Raul Capablanca in one of their tournament games. So, Capablanca was quite puzzled, but he continued and captured the pawn in a very principled way. So black captured and white had to recapture. And in this position, what did black really get for the sacrificed pawn? Doesn't seem like much yet. Well, in the actual game that we were talking about, knight f6 was played, and black is very straightforwardly just threatening bishop d6. And you'll notice that white is missing his knight on f3. So, for instance, If white were to play d4, the natural d4 trying to open up for his pieces, white is a bit behind on development. And after rook e1, black can play this menacing move, immediately signaling that he's ready to attack. Even after the move h3, black can continue with queen h4 with lots of danger, lots of ideas. This bishop on c8 is also ready to jump in itself. So this is what it's all about, and a lot of pressure on white. In that game that Capablanca was playing against Frank Marshall, Capablanca actually played on to h3 over here, sensing the danger, and after bishop d6, dropped back with his rook. Frank Marshall still jumped in with knight to g4. Oh my. I'll show you the rest of the game in another video. But this was the start of the Marshall Gambit. Black pushes d5 and gives up the e5 pawn. If white, of course, accepts, knight f6. Many years later, we actually discovered another way of playing this. And modern day players nowadays actually play pawn to c6. So leaving the knight on d5, and it has an interesting option later on to go to f4, standing proudly on d5. Sure, white can take over there, but white is going to give up the light squares if he does so. And the bishop pair will be black's. So let's say d4 again. White has to get these pieces out. After bishop d6 and rook to e1, this is a typical line. It just seems like black has the initiative, basically. He's threatening a lot over there. White again is missing his knight on f3. So g3, queen h3. You can see the light squares are weak, and white needs to rush to his king. Bishop g4, and this is one of the main lines of the Marshall Gambit. And black is thinking about putting a rook there sometimes. Sometimes he goes f5. Sometimes he even goes g5 in certain circumstances. But black is definitely thinking about attacking and very comfortable. Most times, at the highest level, top grandmasters seem to draw this. So it shows that black has enough compensation at the very least for being that pawn down. So this is what the Gambit is all about. In our next video, we will look at the famous game between Capablanca and Frank Marshall. If you liked what you've seen in this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, and we will see you for the next one. So until then, keep on training. I'm FoxTrainer. See ya.